My parents took my settlement money and gave my college fund to my cousin after I got hit by a drunk driver, so I left and started my own business. Years later they found out I was successful and came back demanding I pay off their debts from my dad's gambling addiction. I, 23F, don't post much online, but I need to write this down. I run a small tech company in Seattle. This whole thing started when I was 17. Back then I was training as a competitive swimmer. I was at the pool 6 days a week, morning and evening sessions. My coach said I had a real shot at getting into a Division I program. My parents came to most of my meets. My mom would pack my meals and my dad drove me to practice before work. Everything revolved around swimming and school. One night in November I was walking home from a friend's house. It was around 9 p.m. and I was 2 blocks from my place. A car ran a red light and hit me while I was crossing at a crosswalk. The driver had been drinking. I woke up 3 weeks later in a hospital bed. The doctors said I was lucky to be alive. My spine took most of the impact. They said I would walk again, but it would take years of work and I would never have the same mobility. Swimming competitively was done. The first month home was strange. My parents had converted the dining room into a bedroom for me because I couldn't do stairs. My mom quit her part-time job to help with appointments and physical exercises. My dad took extra shifts. They didn't talk much during this time. When they did talk, it was about medical bills or insurance or what the next appointment was. The driver's insurance paid out a settlement after 8 months. It was supposed to cover medical costs and future care. Most of it went to hospital bills and the equipment I needed. What was left went into an account my parents controlled. They said it was for my future. I stopped swimming, but I started studying more. There wasn't much else to do. I would wake up, do my exercises, then study until late. My grades went from average to straight A's. I graduated in the top 5% of my class. I thought maybe this would change things at home. It didn't. My parents stopped asking about school. They stopped asking about much. My mom would make dinner and leave a plate for me. My dad worked late most nights. When he was home he watched TV in their bedroom. I existed in the house, but I wasn't part of it anymore. I had a friend named Josh, 18M, who lived next door. We grew up together. He came over most days after school. We would play video games or he would help me with errands I couldn't manage alone. His family invited me for dinner a lot. His mom would make extra food and send plates home with me. The summer after graduation my parents called me into the kitchen. Both of them were sitting at the table. My mom had papers in front of her. She said they needed to talk about college. I had been accepted to the local state university. I planned to commute from home since I couldn't afford dorms and I still needed some help with daily tasks. My dad said the money situation had changed. He said they had been thinking about my future and what made sense. Then my mom said they were giving my college fund to my cousin Stephanie, 19F. She said Stephanie was going to a university out of state and needed help with costs. She said I could take out loans or go to community college instead. I asked about the settlement money. My dad said most of it was gone on medical costs. What was left was their money now for taking care of me. He said I should be grateful they let me live at home for free. Stephanie was my mom's sister's daughter. Her parents ran a small business that barely made money. They gambled on weekends at the local casino. Everyone in the family knew, but nobody talked about it. Stephanie was going to college in California for film production. 2 weeks later my aunt threw a birthday party for Stephanie. My parents said we were all going. I didn't want to go, but they insisted. The party was at a restaurant. About 20 people showed up. Halfway through dinner my mom stood up and gave a speech about how proud she was of Stephanie. Then she handed her an envelope. Stephanie opened it and showed everyone a check. People clapped. My aunt cried. Stephanie hugged my parents and thanked them for believing in her future. I sat at the end of the table. Nobody asked me anything. After dinner Stephanie posted photos on social media with captions about her generous aunt and uncle. I got tagged in one photo. Someone commented asking if I was going to college too. Stephanie replied that I was taking a gap year. I stopped eating regular meals after that. I would make toast or eat crackers in my room. I stopped doing my exercises. I stayed in bed most days. My parents didn't check on me as long as I was quiet. Josh noticed I wasn't answering texts. He came over one afternoon and found me still in bed at 3 p.m. He asked what happened. I told him everything. Josh went home and told his parents. His mom came over an hour later. She packed a bag for me without asking permission. She told my parents I was staying with them for a while. My mom said that was fine. My dad was at work. I lived with Josh's family for 3 months. His parents helped me find a free clinic for basic care. They drove me to appointments. Josh's mom made sure I ate. They didn't make me talk about what happened. They just made space for me in their house. Josh and 2 other friends from high school, Drew, 18F, and Preston, 19M, started a small web design business that fall. They were taking community college classes and doing freelance work on the side. They needed help managing projects and communicating with clients. They offered to pay me a small amount to help organize things. I said yes because I needed something to do. I moved into a cheap studio apartment near campus with help from Josh's parents. I started working with the business full-time. I was good at talking to clients and planning timelines. Within 6 months we had steady work. Within a year we had hired 2 more people. My grandfather on my dad's side called me one day. He said he heard I had moved out. He asked if I needed anything. I said no. He asked what I was doing. I told him about the business. He said he wanted to visit. My grandfather came to Seattle the next month. He met Josh and Drew and Preston. He asked questions about the business and looked at our books. Before he left he asked if I was happy with what I was doing. I said yes. He said good. 3 months later my grandfather called again. He said my friends had contacted him about selling the business. They wanted to move on to other things and thought I should have the first chance to buy it. He offered to loan me the money. We worked out terms that were more than fair. I bought the company and renamed it. A year after that a local tech blog wrote an article about young entrepreneurs in Seattle. They featured my company. The article mentioned that I ran the business while managing mobility issues from an accident. It got shared on social media. A larger newspaper picked it up. Then it went wider. My parents showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning. I opened the door and they were standing there with a printed copy of the newspaper article. My mom had tears on her face. My dad was smiling. He said they saw the article and wanted to see how I was doing. My mom said she was so proud. She tried to hug me. I stepped back. I asked why they were here. My dad said they missed me. My mom said it had been too long. I asked if they needed something. The smiles faded a bit. My dad said they just wanted to reconnect. Josh was in my apartment. He came to the door and asked if everything was okay. My parents looked at him. My mom asked who he was. I said he was my business partner. My dad said they wanted to talk as a family. I told them I didn't have a family. I closed the door. They knocked for another 5 minutes. Then they left. I posted about this situation online because I don't know what to do if they come back. Some people say I should hear them out. Others say I should block them completely. I just want to know if I handled this wrong. Update 1. They kept trying. After I closed the door that first time they started texting. My mom sent messages about how much they missed me and wanted to fix things. My dad sent shorter messages asking me to call. I didn't respond to any of them. 2 weeks after they showed up at my apartment they tried again. This time they came to my office. I rent a small space in a shared building downtown. They somehow found the address and walked in during business hours. My assistant didn't know who they were so she let them into the waiting area. I was in a meeting with a client. My assistant knocked and said my parents were here. The client asked if I needed to step out. I said no and finished the meeting. When I walked out to the lobby my parents were sitting on the couch. They stood up when they saw me. My mom started talking right away. She said they needed to explain what happened 6 years ago. She said they made mistakes but they were under a lot of pressure. My dad said they wanted to make things right. I asked them to leave. My mom said they drove 2 hours to see me and I owed them a conversation. I said I didn't owe them anything. My dad's face changed then. He said I was being dramatic and cruel. I called building security. They left before security arrived. That night I got texts from my aunt, Stephanie's mom. She said I was tearing the family apart by refusing to forgive my parents. She said my parents sacrificed everything for me after my accident. She said the least I could do was show some gratitude. I blocked her number. 3 days later my mom called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered thinking it was a client. She started crying immediately. She said I broke their hearts. She said they only gave Stephanie the money because they thought I wouldn't be able to use a college education. She said they were trying to help everyone. She said my dad was having chest pains from stress and it was my fault. Then she hung up. I told my grandfather what was happening. He said he wasn't surprised. He said my dad had called him asking for money a few months ago. My grandfather had said no. He asked if I wanted him to talk to them. I said no. A week after that my parents sent a letter to my office. It was 3 pages long. The first page talked about how hard it was to take care of me after the accident. How they gave up their lives to help me. How I was ungrateful for not understanding their position. The second page talked about Stephanie and how she dropped out of college after 1 year and moved back home. How the money they gave her was wasted. How they thought I would have been smarter with it. The third page asked me to call them. I showed the letter to Josh and Drew. Drew said I should get a lawyer if they kept harassing me. Josh said his parents would help if I needed anything. I put the letter in a drawer and tried to focus on work. 2 days ago my mom and aunt showed up at my apartment again. I wasn't home. They waited in the hallway for 3 hours until I got back from a dinner meeting. When I got off the elevator they were sitting on the floor outside my door. My mom stood up fast. My aunt stayed sitting. My aunt spoke first. She said my parents were in financial trouble. She said they needed help and I was the only one who could help them. I asked what kind of trouble. My mom said they were going to lose the house. She said they took out a second mortgage to cover bills after I moved out. She said they fell behind on payments. She said if they lost the house they would have nowhere to go. I asked why they took out a second mortgage. My aunt looked at the floor. My mom said it was complicated. I said I wanted to know. My dad had a gambling problem, she finally said. It started small but got worse. He had been going to the casino with my aunt and uncle for years. He lost most of their savings before my accident. The settlement money from my accident covered some of his debts. When that ran out, they used credit cards. Then the second mortgage. Now they were out of options. I asked about the money they gave Stephanie. My aunt said that money came from a different account. She said they were trying to help family. I asked if she knew about my dad's gambling when they gave Stephanie the money instead of me. She didn't answer. My mom asked if I would loan them money. She said they would pay me back. I asked how. She didn't have an answer. I told them to leave. My mom grabbed my arm. She said I was their daughter and I had a responsibility to help them. I pulled my arm away and went inside my apartment. They knocked for a while then left. Now I'm getting calls from other relatives. People I haven't talked to in years. They all say the same thing. Family helps family. I should forgive and move on. My parents made mistakes but they need help now. Some of them mention that I have money now so I should share it. I don't know what they expect me to do. I don't have extra money sitting around. My company is doing okay but I reinvest most of the profit. I still pay my grandfather back every month. I have employees who depend on steady paychecks. Even if I had money, I don't know why I would give it to people who made it clear I was a burden. Update 2: My grandfather asked me to meet him for lunch last month. He was in Seattle for a few days. We met at a restaurant near the water. He asked how the business was going. I gave him updates on our projects. Then he asked about my parents. I told him they had been contacting me constantly. He nodded. He said my dad had called him again asking for money. My grandfather had told him no and explained that he wouldn't enable the gambling anymore. My dad had gotten angry and hung up. Then my grandfather said something I wasn't expecting. He said he wanted me to meet with my parents one more time. He said he needed to see how they acted with me before he made some final decisions. I asked what decisions. He said he was updating his will and wanted to make sure he understood the situation fully. He asked if I would do this as a favor to him. I said yes. I texted my mom and said I would meet them at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral location. 1 hour. No other family members. She agreed immediately. They showed up 15 minutes early. I arrived exactly on time. They were sitting at a corner table. My mom stood up when she saw me. My dad stayed seated. I sat down across from them without ordering anything. My mom started talking right away. She said she was glad I agreed to meet. She said they wanted to apologize for everything. My dad nodded but didn't say anything. I waited. My mom said they were wrong to give Stephanie my college fund. She said they panicked after the accident and didn't know what to do. She said they thought I wouldn't need college because I wouldn't be able to work a normal job. She said they were trying to make a smart financial choice for the family. I asked if they thought about asking me what I wanted. My mom said I was still recovering and they didn't want to upset me. I asked if taking my money without telling me first was supposed to be less upsetting. She didn't have an answer for that. My dad finally spoke. He said I needed to understand that raising me after the accident was expensive. He said they spent thousands on care and equipment and appointments. He said the settlement didn't cover everything. He said I should appreciate that they didn't kick me out. I asked about the gambling. His face went hard. He said that was none of my business. I said it was my business when they gambled away money that was supposed to be for my future. He said I was twisting things. My mom put her hand on his arm. My mom said they needed $40,000 to save the house. She said the bank was starting foreclosure. She said if I could loan them the money they would figure out payments. I asked what would stop my dad from gambling it away. My dad stood up. He said I was being disrespectful. He said after everything they did for me I should want to help. I said they gave away my future to fund someone else's and now expected me to fund theirs. My mom started crying. Not the quiet kind. The loud kind that makes people stare. She said I was heartless. She said she carried me for 9 months and raised me for 17 years and this is how I repaid her. She said any decent daughter would help her parents. My dad sat back down and put his head in his hands. I stood up to leave. My dad looked up and said if I walked away they would lose everything. He said they would end up on the street. He said I would have to live with that. I said they made their choices and I made mine. I left. My grandfather called me the next day. He said my dad had called him screaming about how I refused to help them. My grandfather said my dad blamed me for ruining the family. My grandfather asked how the meeting went. I told him everything. He was quiet for a while. Then he said he was sorry I had to deal with this. He said he would take care of something. A week after that I got a call from my grandfather's lawyer. He said my grandfather wanted me to know that he had updated his will. He said my dad was no longer a beneficiary. Everything would go to me when my grandfather passed. He said my grandfather wanted me to know so I wouldn't be surprised later. He also said my grandfather had sent a letter to my parents informing them of this change. My parents started calling again immediately. My dad left voicemails saying I turned his own father against him. My mom sent texts saying I destroyed their relationship with my grandfather out of spite. My aunt called and said I was selfish for taking an inheritance that should be split among all the grandchildren. I didn't respond to any of them. My grandfather got sick 2 weeks ago. He went into the hospital with pneumonia. It got worse fast. I flew to see him. He was in and out of consciousness, but he recognized me. He said he was proud of what I built. He said he never doubted me. He died 4 days later. The funeral was yesterday. My parents showed up. They sat in the back. During the service, my dad tried to approach the front to speak. My uncle, my grandfather's brother, stopped him. He said my grandfather had left specific instructions that my dad was not to speak. My dad argued. My uncle called security. They escorted my parents out. People stared. After the funeral, there was a reading of the will. My parents tried to attend. The lawyer said only beneficiaries were allowed. My parents were not beneficiaries. They left. I inherited everything. The house. The investments. Some cash. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was more than I expected. The lawyer said my grandfather had been very clear about his wishes. He had written a letter to be read after his death. In it he said he was leaving everything to me because I was the only one who never asked him for anything. He said my dad had spent years asking for handouts and making excuses. He said I had worked for what I had and deserved to build on it. Update 3: My parents lost their house 3 weeks ago. I know because my aunt called to tell me. She said they were living in their car and it was my fault. She said I could have saved them but chose not to. She said she hoped I could live with myself. Then she hung up. I haven't heard from my parents directly. I've heard from other relatives though. People calling to say I'm cruel. People saying family is supposed to help family. People saying my grandfather was wrong to cut out his own son. Nobody mentions the gambling. Nobody mentions them giving away my college fund. Nobody mentions them showing up demanding money. It's just me being the villain. I used some of my grandfather's inheritance to expand the business. We hired 3 more people. We moved to a bigger office. I also paid off my loan to my grandfather's estate early even though the terms said I didn't have to. It seemed right. Josh's parents invited me for dinner last week. They do that every few weeks. Josh's mom asked if I had heard from my parents. I said no. She said that was probably for the best. Josh's dad said they were proud of me for standing my ground. Josh said I should change my number. I haven't yet, but I'm thinking about it. I saw Stephanie at a grocery store a few days ago. She was working as a cashier. She scanned my items without looking up. When she finally saw my face, she froze. I asked how she was doing. She said fine. I paid and left. She didn't say anything else. My mom sent one email last week from a library computer. It was short. She said they were staying in a shelter now. She said my dad's health was getting worse from the stress. She said if anything happened to him it would be on me. She said she hoped I was happy with my choices. I didn't respond. I don't feel the way people think I should feel. I don't feel good about what happened to them. But I also don't feel bad enough to change anything. They made decisions that hurt me when I needed them most. They came back only when they needed something from me. That's not family. That's just biology. The company is doing well. We landed a big contract last month. I'm working on expanding into a new market. I keep my grandfather's photo on my desk. I think about him when I make big decisions. I think about what he would say. Usually it's something about working hard and not taking shortcuts. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my parents had just asked me for help back then instead of taking what was mine. If they had included me in the decision about college. If they had treated me like I still mattered after the accident. Maybe things would be different. But they didn't and they aren't. I'm not writing this for advice anymore. I'm writing it to close this chapter. My parents made their choices. I made mine. That's all there is to it. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2: My husband ditched me with 2 kids on a flight after secretly getting a first-class seat. When I confronted him, he said, "It's just 5 hours, you can handle it." So I left him at the airport and filed for divorce. Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be posting about my marriage problems online, but here I am. I'm Madison, 32F, married to Jack, 34M, for 6 years with 2 kids, Oliver, 4M, and Sophia, 2F. I always thought we had a solid marriage until an incident at the airport last week that made me question everything. We were heading to Virginia to visit my brother Ryan, 30M. I spent 3 weeks preparing for this trip, buying new clothes for the kids since they'd grown out of their summer stuff, arranging for my neighbor to feed our dog Rex, making lists of everything we'd need, packing all our suitcases, and getting the kids' entertainment ready for the flight. Jack's only contribution was booking the flights and hotel. That was it. On the day of our departure, we arrived at the airport, checked our bags, and made it through security without any issues. When we got near our gate, Jack mentioned he needed to use the restroom. I sat down with the kids near the gate and waited. And waited. And waited some more. After 30 minutes with no sign of Jack, our flight was about to start boarding. I called his cell phone, and he sounded strange, hesitant, evasive. When I pressed him about where he was, he finally admitted he had secretly upgraded only his ticket to first class, leaving me alone with 2 small children in economy for a 5-hour flight. My hands started shaking. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. When I asked him why he would do this, he said he deserved a break because work had been stressful lately. According to him, it was just 5 hours and I could handle the kids on my own. I reminded him that I had been the one who packed everything, prepared everything, and had been handling most of the childcare and household responsibilities for years while also working as a kindergarten teacher. When was my break? I told him to come back immediately or I would board the plane without him. He refused, saying I was overreacting. So that's exactly what I did. I boarded the plane with Oliver and Sophia and left him behind. I told Oliver that Daddy would be taking a different flight. Our checked bags were with Jack since he had the bag claim tickets, but at that point, I didn't care. For context, Jack and I met in our college economics class. I was drawn to his quick wit and genuine smile. We started dating in our junior year and moved in together after graduation. I got a job as a kindergarten teacher, and he went into marketing. We married 2 years after college and moved into a nice suburban house. When I got pregnant with Oliver, we were both thrilled. Jack was attentive during my pregnancy, always making sure I had everything I needed. But after Oliver was born, everything changed. We were both exhausted from sleepless nights, but Jack quickly went back to work, saying he needed to secure a promotion to better provide for our family. I took maternity leave and ended up handling most of the childcare and household tasks. Even when Jack was home, he seemed disconnected and uninvolved. I had to repeatedly ask him to do simple things like changing diapers or washing bottles. I tried talking to him about sharing responsibilities more evenly. He would apologize and promise to do better, but nothing ever changed. When Sophia came along 2 years later, the imbalance worsened. I was juggling a toddler, a newborn, and my teaching job while Jack continued to focus primarily on his career. He's a loving dad on weekends, playing with the kids and taking them to the park, but he's completely detached from the daily grind. I'm the one who remembers doctor appointments, school schedules, when the kids need new clothes, grocery shopping, cleaning, and everything else. Jack doesn't notice these things, and he only helps if I specifically ask him to. I've tried different approaches, calm discussions, making lists, even letting things fall apart to show him what happens when I don't handle everything. Nothing works long term. I still care about Jack, and we have good moments together, but the constant weight of carrying our family's mental and physical load has worn me down. After I boarded the plane with the kids, Jack bombarded me with texts and calls, which I ignored during the flight. When we landed in Virginia, I went straight to Ryan's house. He was shocked to see us without Jack, and even more shocked when I explained what happened. Ryan became protective of me right away. He insisted we stay with him instead of going to the hotel Jack had booked. After getting the kids settled, I finally called Jack back. He was still at the airport, panicking because he didn't know where we were. I told him we were safe at Ryan's house and that I wanted a divorce. He was stunned, saying I was blowing things out of proportion over one incident. He repeated his justification about work stress and needing some peace and quiet. I laughed without humor. I explained that I'm constantly stressed too, but I've never abandoned him with the kids. I laid everything out, how I felt like a single parent for years, how I carry the entire mental load of our family, how he never takes initiative without being asked, and how tired I am of managing everything. He tried to argue that he contributes equally by working hard and providing financially. I firmly rejected this. I told him the first-class upgrade was just the final straw after years of feeling unsupported and taken for granted. He begged me to meet him at the hotel, but I refused, saying I needed space and would be staying with Ryan. A few hours later, Jack's parents called me. They apologized for his behavior and begged me not to end the marriage. They've always been kind to me, and we've had a good relationship. Their call made me question my decision. Part of me still cares for Jack. We have history together and 2 beautiful children. But another part of me is exhausted from years of unmet needs and broken promises. I want a true partnership, not this one-sided arrangement where I carry most of the weight. Am I overreacting to the first-class incident? Should I give him another chance? I honestly don't know what to do anymore. Update 1 first, I want to thank everyone for their comments and support on my original post. Reading your perspectives helped me process my thoughts and feelings about my situation. After spending a week at Ryan's house, I agreed to meet Jack for a conversation. We met at a coffee shop while Ryan watched Oliver and Sophia. What was supposed to be a quick talk turned into a 4-hour discussion about our marriage. Jack started by apologizing profusely for the airport incident. He admitted it was selfish and inconsiderate to leave me alone with the kids for the flight. He said he'd been doing a lot of thinking and realized how much he'd been taking me for granted. I appreciated his apology but explained that the airport incident wasn't an isolated event but part of a pattern. I described how I'd been feeling like a single parent, carrying the mental load of our family, and how his lack of initiative had been draining me for years. Then Jack shared something I didn't expect. He revealed that he struggles with anxiety about being an adequate provider, stemming from his relationship with his father. Jack's dad was highly critical and always emphasized that a man's worth was tied to his ability to provide financially for his family. Jack said he threw himself into work as a coping mechanism because it was the one area where he felt competent, while parenting and household tasks overwhelmed him. This revelation surprised me. In 6 years of marriage, Jack had never opened up about these feelings. While it helped me understand his behavior better, I made it clear that his anxiety didn't excuse the imbalance in our relationship or the burden it placed on me. We discussed our different models of marriage. My parents had an equal partnership where both shared household and childcare responsibilities, while Jack grew up with a traditional division of labor where his mom handled everything at home while his dad worked. This explained some of our mismatched expectations. After our long talk, Jack asked if we could try marriage counseling before proceeding with a divorce. He promised he was committed to changing and offered to start individual therapy to address his anxiety and issues with his father. I was hesitant because of his previous empty promises, but his apparent sincerity and remorse influenced my decision. I agreed to try counseling as a final chance to save our marriage, but I made it clear that if I didn't see real, consistent change, I would proceed with a divorce. I refused to continue in a one-sided marriage where I carried most of the burden. We found a counselor and have attended 3 sessions so far. The experience has been eye-opening and emotionally charged. The counselor is focusing on improving our communication, teaching Jack how to be an active partner rather than a passive one, and encouraging me to voice my needs directly. The counselor has given us practical exercises aimed at building Jack's confidence in handling household and childcare tasks. At home, Jack has been making more effort, taking over the bedtime routine with the kids, doing laundry without being asked, and even planning a date night for us. While these changes are encouraging, I remain cautiously optimistic. It's just the beginning, and I need to see sustained effort over time. I've decided to continue staying at Ryan's house for now, needing more time and evidence of change before considering moving back home. Jack was disappointed but said he understood. We've maintained regular family dinners for the kids' sake. Oliver has been asking difficult questions about why we're not all living together, which has been hard to navigate. We're trying to provide age-appropriate explanations without burdening him with adult problems. The outcome is still uncertain, but both of us appear to be putting in genuine effort to address our issues. Jack is showing up for counseling sessions prepared and engaged, and I'm trying to keep an open mind about the possibility of change. Some of you asked about our checked bags from the flight. Ryan helped me buy essential items for the kids and me until Jack shipped our bags to Ryan's house 2 days after we arrived. I still have moments of doubt and anger when I think about the airport incident and the years of imbalance in our marriage. But I'm trying to focus on whether we can build something better going forward, rather than dwelling on past hurts. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time and keeping my expectations realistic. I'll update again when there are significant developments in our situation. Update 2: It's been 2 months since my last update, and a lot has changed. We continued with marriage counseling for several weeks, and for a while, things seemed to be improving. Jack was more engaged with the children, taking them to the zoo on weekends, reading bedtime stories, and planning family activities. We even had a few enjoyable date nights where we connected like we used to in the early days of our relationship. Unfortunately, the positive changes didn't last. Jack gradually began slipping back into old patterns. He forgot about Oliver's school performance that we had marked on the calendar. He didn't follow through on taking Sophia to her doctor's appointment as promised, claiming a work emergency came up. When I called him out on these lapses, he became defensive and made excuses about being busy at work. I tried to be patient and remind myself that change takes time, but as the mental load crept back onto my shoulders, my hope began to fade. Then came an incident that seriously undermined the fragile trust we were rebuilding. Oliver caught a bad cold and was up most of the night coughing. I had an important meeting at work the next day that I couldn't miss, so I asked Jack if he could stay home with Oliver. He agreed. The next morning, as I was preparing for my meeting, I received a call from Jack's mother. She mentioned that Jack had just dropped off a sick Oliver at her house because he had a crucial work meeting. He hadn't consulted me about this change of plans or even texted to let me know. When I confronted Jack later, he became defensive again, claiming I didn't understand the pressures he faced at work. This incident made one thing clear to me: when push came to shove, Jack's priorities hadn't changed. The final revelation came during a counseling session focused on discussing our future goals. When asked about his goals for our marriage, I expressed that I wanted to feel like we were equal partners in our marriage and family life. Jack stated that his goal was to get his upcoming promotion so he could provide better for us financially. The disconnect in our answers spoke volumes. I pointed out that financial provision wasn't the core issue in our marriage. Jack became frustrated and accused me of not appreciating the sacrifices he made at work and being ungrateful for the lifestyle he provided. In that moment, I realized that despite months of counseling, Jack still fundamentally didn't understand the problem. He remained fixated on his role as a provider and missed the point about being present, being a partner, and sharing the daily responsibilities of our life together. After much reflection, I decided to file for divorce. While there had been some improvements, the fundamental issues, Jack's prioritization of work over family responsibilities and my carrying the mental and emotional labor, remained unchanged. I recognized that I had played a role in enabling this dynamic over the years by picking up the slack and not enforcing stronger boundaries. I decided to address these tendencies in myself through individual therapy. When I told Jack my decision, he was devastated. He begged for another chance and made more promises, but this time I held firm. I'd seen this pattern too many times to believe things would be different. I moved back to our house with the kids and asked Jack to stay with his parents temporarily. We're actively working on a custody arrangement that ensures Jack has ample time with Oliver and Sophia. Despite our issues, he does love them, and they need their father in their lives. The transition has been difficult for the children. Oliver keeps asking when Daddy is coming home, and Sophia has been clingy lately. Watching them struggle with these changes has been the hardest part of this process. I'm focusing on building a new life for myself and the kids and continuing individual therapy to work through my own patterns. Ryan has been a crucial support throughout this process, helping with childcare and offering emotional support when needed. I don't know exactly what the future holds, but I'm working toward a healthier life for myself and my children. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this difficult journey. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and almost 9 months since the airport incident that changed everything. A lot has happened in that time, and I wanted to provide a final update for those who have followed my story. The divorce is now finalized. The process was less contentious than I expected. Jack eventually accepted that our marriage was over and worked with me to create a fair custody and financial arrangement. We have joint custody, with the children spending weekdays with me and weekends with Jack. Something unexpected happened about 3 months into our separation. Jack's company offered him a transfer to their office in Chicago. Initially, he refused because he didn't want to move away from Oliver and Sophia. But after several discussions, including with our lawyers and a family mediator, Jack decided to accept the position. We worked out a new custody arrangement where the kids stay with me during the school year and spend holidays and summer breaks with Jack. He also comes back to visit one weekend each month. It's not ideal, but we're making it work for the children's sake. The distance has actually improved our co-parenting relationship. Without the daily tensions and disappointments of our marriage, we communicate more effectively about the children's needs. Jack seems more present during his time with Oliver and Sophia, perhaps because he knows his time with them is limited and precious. Oliver has adjusted to the new normal better than I expected. He still has moments of sadness, but he enjoys his video calls with Jack and looks forward to their visits. Sophia, being younger, adapted more quickly, though she sometimes gets confused when Jack leaves after his weekend visits. As for me, I've settled into life as a single parent. It's challenging at times, but not drastically different from how things were before, except now I don't have the added weight of disappointment and resentment. I've increased my hours at the school where I teach and joined a support group for single parents, which has been incredibly helpful. Ryan continues to be a tremendous support. He lives nearby and often takes Oliver and Sophia for an afternoon so I can have some time to myself, something I rarely had during my marriage. Jack's parents were initially upset about the divorce, but they've come around and remain involved grandparents. They've even acknowledged that Jack needs to work on being more present and responsible as a father. Last month, I ran into Jack when he was in town visiting the kids. We had coffee afterward, and he told me he's been seeing a therapist in Chicago. He apologized again for the airport incident and for not being the partner I needed. He admitted that he now understands why I felt so alone in our marriage. While I appreciate his insights, they came too late for our relationship. However, I'm glad for his sake and for our children that he's working on himself. The airport incident, as awful as it was, turned out to be a necessary wake-up call. It forced me to confront the reality of my marriage instead of continuing to make excuses and hope things would change on their own. I've learned valuable lessons about the importance of clear boundaries and the danger of silently accepting an unfair distribution of responsibilities. These are lessons I'll carry forward into any future relationships and that I hope to teach my children as they grow. For now, I'm focused on creating a stable, loving home for Oliver and Sophia and rebuilding my life one day at a time. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in years, I feel like I'm moving forward rather than treading water. Thank you to everyone who offered support and advice throughout this journey. Your perspectives helped me navigate one of the most challenging periods of my life, and I'm grateful for this community.